Good morning. I'm Connie, the Prairie Mom, and I'm here this morning with my cup of coffee, trusty cup of coffee in the morning, to help you get started on your sourdough adventures. It's going to be a great time, and I'm really excited to walk with you through this, developing your own starter. And it's a really exciting thing, and you're going to have such a feeling of accomplishment when you've done this. Sourdough has been used for centuries, maybe even almost as long as time, to rise bread. As long as people have been making bread, they've used sourdough. It's something that occurs very naturally because, as you'll see, without any additional ingredients, those sourdough yeast that are the wild yeast that are in the air just begin to congregate and feed, and the bacteria multiplies, the good bacteria in your starter culture, to create delicious baked goods. Magical things happen, science right in your kitchen, and it's a great thing. So I want to get started here today. Each day I'm going to give you just a little clip about sourdough, and then we're going to just do the next step, and we're going to do that together. So let me show you some of the things that you're going to need here today. You're going to need something to put your starter in, to start it in. Glass. It needs to be glass. Starter tends to have properties that would break down. They might absorb some of the things in metals. They might break down some of the things in plastic. Those are just not things we want. So be sure you make your starter in something glass. I've got a couple of wide mouth quart jars that we're going to use today, but even if you have just a little glass bowl that you're not using for another purpose right now, you could do that and just set a plate on it. You want to be sure that whatever you top it with, you can leave loose. So if you're using a jar, you could put a tea towel over the top of it and maybe hold that on with a rubber band. Or if you have a lid, I'm just going to use these white lids and set them on, not screwing them down at all, but setting them on. So that's kind of the hardware that you're going to need. As far as ingredients, you only need flour, water, and for one of our starters, you're going to need a little bit of yeast. The two different kinds of starters are Max. This is my little guy. We're going to make one like Max. We're going to make it from scratch using just a whole grain flour and water, and that's it. So we're going to start with this. I use a hard red wheat. So white wheat is not as good. Hard red works great. Rye works really well. So if you have rye flour, you can get rye flour. That's fantastic. Even if it is a filtered rye flour, that would work great. And then in our other starter, which we're going to call mini, we are going to use unbleached flour. And in that one, we're going to put just a little bit of yeast to kickstart it and to make that a really fast acting, very different kind of sourdough. So we're going to do both of those. Use whatever you feel comfortable with. The Max starter that's whole grain works really well with whole grain breads. It works really well with heavier kinds of breads. It has a deeper, nuttier flavor. Very slow rising, lots of time for fermentation to happen in those flours to break down all the things that are hard for us to digest sometimes. So that's your Max starter. Your mini starter is going to be your all-purpose starter. It's going to be the one that works fast. It's going to be the one that works really well with unbleached flour. It works really well for pancakes, waffles, muffins, quick breads. We're going to do all of those things, and the mini starter is perfect for that. So if you're not a big whole grain cook and you want something that you can prepare a little faster, then you would want to use the mini starter. All right, well, let's make the Max starter first, and it's really simple. I'm going to measure it by weight, but I'll try to also give you the measurements so you can do that. We're going to use 120 grams of our hard red wheat flour, and that is about 1 cup. So this is a half cup measure. So we're going to get 120 grams in here, or close. All right, there we go, 121. And then we're going to put the same amount of water. And 120 grams of water is just over half a cup. But we're gonna go ahead and measure it out here this way. And then we're gonna mix that up. And that is your Max starter. That's all there is to it. It's very thick. Let me show you. We want to get this, every time you feed it, you're going to stir it really well. This Max starter will not be ready to rise bread for probably 2 weeks. So we're going to have a little bit of a day-by-day adventure here, and that's okay. But it will be able to make lots of other things, and so we'll be able to use it before it's actually able to rise bread all by itself. I don't know if you can see this. It is very, let me show you. It's very thick. Can you see that? It's very, very thick, and that's gonna be very different from the other starter that we're fixing to make, which is mini. So let's do mini now. And let's loosely cover this with our lid and my marker right here. We're gonna label our jar Max. All right, we'll come back to visit Max this evening. This is mini. Mini is made with all unbleached flour or all-purpose flour, whatever you can get your hands on. We're not going to weigh the flour for mini. We're just going to measure it out, and you're going to keep this super simple. You need 1 cup loosely measured flour, and you need 1 cup of water. Okay, we're going to mix this together. Make sure you get the flour scraped off the bottom. Okay, I think I'm going to use a whisk to get those small pieces dissolved in a little bit better. Oh yeah. That looks a lot better. You'll see the difference immediately. Very thin. And now we're going to add the yeast. We're going to use a half a tablespoon of yeast. We want regular active yeast, not instant yeast. But if that's all you've got, go ahead and give that a whirl. And we're going to make this work with what we've got on hand. Okay. And just stir that yeast into that cup of flour and water. And there she is, Miss Minnie right there. We're gonna loosely put the lid on and label our jar. Miss Minnie. We'll set her over here beside Max. And that's all you have to do this morning. I will see y'all again this evening. Have a blessed day. Hi, we're back. It is day 1 in the evening. It's been about 12 hours since we started our sourdough cultures. We're gonna go back and visit them again, and we're gonna do a little bit of work here. A very little bit. Max is looking much the same, but Minnie has grown tremendously. She is full of bubbles. I'm posting a picture now for you to see the difference in the 2 starters. For tonight's feeding for Max, we're not going to do anything. He doesn't get any food. One of the things that we're trying to do with this culture is capture the wild yeast. So all we're going to do is we're going to kind of scrape this jar down and clean it up a little. But this looks good. It's thick, it's sticky, it's stretchy, which at this point is what you would want. There's no yeast that's causing it to, so you can see, you can pick up the whole thing and it stretches, and that is fine at this point. That's all we want. So we've got our jar cleaned up just a little bit, and we've kind of stirred that around and stirred some air into our culture. And we're going to just set this back on there, yeah, there you go. Super loose. And we're gonna put Max back on the cabinet for 12 more hours. Minnie, on the other hand, is ready to go to work for us. We're going to pour off 1 cup of this starter. So I'm gonna stir this down a little bit. Because we're gonna use this 1 cup for something special. All right, that's about right, 1 cup. All right, now then, left in our jar, let me scrape this down so you can see. There is just about a half a cup in the bottom of the jar is all that's left. So we're going to add back to this now. We've used a cup, and we're going to, this would be our mother culture that we're trying to ferment down here in the bottom. We're gonna add back to this 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of water. We're using unbleached flour, all purpose, and a cup of, we use our well water, but if you're in the city and you have any kind of treated or chlorinated water, you need to use a filtered water or something from the grocery store, not your tap water. Get 1 cup of flour. And let's get 1 cup of water. And we're gonna stir this one just like we did this morning. I've got a really special treat coming up for you tomorrow on day 2. We're gonna do an interview with my sister who has a mini starter. And hers is not named Minnie, but it's the same type of starter, the same, and it is her recipe that I'm going to be sharing with you here in just a second. All right, we've got that scraped down. It is pretty smooth. Okay, Minnie has been fed. She's been scraped down. We're gonna replace the lid just loosely, and we're gonna set her back over here by Max, and we're gonna leave her until tomorrow. So why did we remove 1 cup of this starter? It's kind of like feeding 1 plate of food to 1 child, and that goes over really well. But if you try to feed that same plate of food to 2 children, they might leave a little hungry. And if you tried to feed that same plate of food to 4 children, you might have a rebellion on your hands. And that's exactly what we're working with our sourdough. You need to pull out some of the yeasts and bacteria and some of the things that are eating up all of what you're feeding it. And you need to get rid of those things so that what you're feeding it is always fresh and it's always turning over, and your yeasts and your bacteria are always growing. And a few weeks down the road, there will be a lot more flexibility with that. But while we're working really hard now to culture the right bacteria and the right yeast and to get those to grow, we need to be super careful to always pull off a cup of our starter before we move on to the next thing. But that doesn't mean you have to just throw this away. There's a lot of things you can do with your excess sourdough that you've pulled off. Today, I've got 2 recipes up on my website that you can choose from. One of them is sourdough biscuits, and one of them is a sourdough breakfast cookie from my sister. We're gonna get to talk with her more tomorrow, but her family loves these cookies. They're a breakfast cookie made with Cheerios and oatmeal and a few chocolate chips and some peanut butter. They're delicious. But I'm gonna post that recipe for you on my website. Be sure and like, comment, or share here. Follow me on social media. The links to my Facebook and Instagram are in the description box. I really appreciate y'all joining in. Tomorrow will be day 2 in our sourdough adventures. Y'all have a blessed evening.